I would like to cover some points here that relate to my personal story and how I came about creating this course. My difficulties with sleep started manifesting themselves in my early 20s. At this stage, they were sporadic. They were mostly happening when I was traveling. Yet already then, I was occasionally taking tranquilizers to help remedy the issue. The medication would help me drift off for a short while, but my sleep wouldn't feel restorative. I would feel very foggy the next day. And insomnia really started to hit me hard when I was 22. That's when I moved to London to finish my studies. That year, I started to experience chronic insomnia. Night after night, I would lie awake in my bed trying to soothe myself with food and TV, becoming more and more fearful of not sleeping or of being woken up by noise if I did fall asleep. And so insomnia became an integral part of my existence. I would spend days and weeks without sleeping. I started taking pills almost daily to tranquilize my mind. When the pills did succeed in giving me a few hours of rest, they made me very foggy and tired the next day. I was living with insomnia and I was putting on a brave and happy face to maintain social relationships and appear normal to others. And so insomnia had become my reality, and I had become an insomniac in the eyes of those who knew me. That wasn't, of course, the only thing that they perceived, because behind the deep struggle I was living, I was also powering through with my life and trying to act as normal as I could. I was lucky to have always been supported and surrounded by loving friends. Yet, when people do not experience insomnia for themselves, they will not always come from a place of compassion when referring to your experience. And so over time, labels like the insomniac or jokes like you don't sleep anyway, so you have plenty of time, had become part of the norm. And although there were no serious bad intentions behind them, those comments were very triggering to me, because accepting to be called an insomniac would mean to accept it as a definition of me, and I was just not ready to accept this experience as permanent. At the time, really accepting to be labeled as an insomniac felt like signing a tacit contract with the universe to make this a lifelong condition. And so it was at the end of 2007, when the university year ended and I moved out of the student residence, that the insomnia improved greatly. I would still experience sporadic episodes every now and then, but I was starting to coming back to myself. I started my career in marketing. I worked busy office jobs in central London. And occasionally, when I feared not sleeping, I would perhaps take a tranquilizer to put my mind at rest, to put my mind at ease. But things by then had already improved greatly. Sadly, I wasn't able to continue covering up my mind's restlessness. And in 2011, the insomnia started again. And this then kick-started 3.5 years of hell. During those 3.5 years, which back then I considered to be some of my happiest years, I barely ever slept. People who didn't know me well would have never guessed the state I was in. I was powering through, going on weeks without sleeping. I was drugged with pharmaceuticals, which made me even more disconnected from myself than I already was. I wasn't most of the time able to share a bed with my husband. That was just not possible. It just added so much more fear. And so this also added a great guilt to the myriad of destructive emotions and thoughts I was already experiencing. During those 3.5 years, I sought answers everywhere. I went down the traditional Western medicine route, and that included more sleeping pills, it included psychotherapy, sleep centers, cognitive behavior therapy, all of which has its space at some stage in my life. But seeds of a new consciousness were also being planted in my mind whilst in my quest for answers, and I looked for alternative routes. Even though I had not healed the root cause of my insomnia, with each breadcrumb that I was following, I was getting closer to the nucleus. I studied in a Tibetan Buddhist temple in Nepal. I used therapies including generational work. I studied Reiki. I tried to access some feeling of liveliness using marijuana or using extensive exercise or even experimenting with psychedelics. All of that was taking place as I was still living a normal life. I was socializing and I was working like most people do. I was trying just to keep it all afloat, to keep a smile on my face and to be accepted in society and recognized at my workplace. That was until I touched rock bottom. I had nowhere to go. I was feeling trapped in my mind after so many years of not sleeping and trying everything. That day, I decided to take drastic measures. I had heard about indigenous plant medicines and ayahuasca from different sources in the past, so I joined a weekend retreat. That weekend of plant medicine triggered a spiritual awakening, meaning an awakening to a deeper meaning, to a knowing that everything has a purpose. And through the session, I learned how to let go of control. I had not even been aware of how much my mind was trying to always be in control. And so I was able to get out of my mind by dropping into my body. And the session was very intense. I learned the hard way, as plant medicines will often have you. I was given a framework of understanding which started a journey of consolidation and deep introspection for me. And from that moment, I stopped taking pills and I started healing. This happened in July 2015. I have been able to sleep since because of the work that I have been doing since, which is a work of connection to my body and of connection to my intuition. And so from that space, I'm able to make new conscious choices every day, which keep me on a path of growth and healing and actualize the change which was triggered by the plant medicine experience. The whole issue when it comes to me personally and my experience of insomnia boiled down to living in a state of fear. Unconscious fear, a state of control, living disconnected from my soul. In times that were supposed to be fun and the happiest in my life, I experienced perpetual low-level tension and I was on the edge because I was not sleeping. I didn't know it at the time, but I didn't know how to drop into my body and how to initiate a relaxation response. I thought I knew how to relax, but I didn't. Although the plant medicine opened the veil for me, it was a very intense experience. Not something I could sustainably continue to do and not something I would recommend to everyone. And definitely something that should be approached with great reverence and caution and led by highly skilled people. I needed something which allowed me to maintain a consolidated state, a sense of connection and grounding and trust. Something which would allow me to build on this, to declutter all the layers of my mind, conditioned and attached to all ways and thoughts. To sustain the change, I needed practices that taught me how to move, that taught me how to breathe, how to manage my mind and emotions and connect within. Well, the universe provided just that as soon after when another life event led me to go through the dark night of my soul and to experience panic attacks for 9 months, I was drawn to Kundalini Yoga. And I started then coming back home to who I'm meant to be. It wasn't my intention to get into yoga, not at all. Yoga just happened to me, or you could say that it happened for me. It started to really heal me, and then yoga gradually became my life. I had to recreate new connections in my brain and my body, new thoughts and beliefs. The experiences that I have lived forced me to create change, but it is the work of consolidation, the work of consolidating the thoughts that allowed me to acquire new realizations, for those realizations to become my reality, to create lasting change. And the gift of this practice really keeps on giving. It is my passion and my mission to use it as a tool which will help you see more clearly through the meaning of all of your experiences and suffering, stepping fully into your essence, and by doing so, healing and magnetizing new opportunities and fulfilling circumstances. I certainly didn't see it that way when I was in the midst of it, but today I truly consider my insomnia to have been a blessing. Without it, I wouldn't have sought the solution, which led me to understand how my mind works, to detach from my emotions and gain a greater perspective over my life. All of which ultimately led me to experience joy and make the most of this life. If you are thinking about joining my Yoga for Insomnia course, I highly encourage you to, and I remain available to answer any questions that you might have. Sat Nam and Namaste.